With this presentation, we would like to provide a short overview about the changes in the gas market risk management framework. These changes are planned to be implemented from the 1st of August 2022. The first change is the CEEGEX and trading platform turnover margin. Currently, besides the prepaid trading limits, there are turnover margin calculations separately for CEEGEX and trading platform, which must be met regardless of the trading activity. With this margin calculation, with this algorithmic turnover margin calculation, KELER CCP sets a quasi-mandatory limit for every market participant. This mandatory limit is based on the algorithm, and it considers the trading activity of the market members. However, we see that that would be a favorable change for the market participants to dismiss this mandatory minimum margin limit. Instead, we would give the freedom to the members to decide whether is the appropriate level of collateral that they would like to place and accumulate their exposure up to. So all in all, in case there is no financial obligation stemming from a trading activity, no margin must be provided, but the other margin elements still will be applied. We prepared a short example or a graph to illustrate better the result of this turnover margin dismission. On the left side, you may see the effective model, where the blue column means the calculated turnover margin with the algorithm, and with the yellow column, you may see the planned exposure, and that has to be covered with collateral. In the blue line, the blue column, you may see in the example that KELER CCP calculated the turnover margin with a value of 500, but the planned exposure of the member is only 200. In the new model, only 200 collateral shall be placed, because that is enough to cover the planned exposure of the market member. But of course, if the turnover margin is less than the planned exposure, then the planned exposure has to be covered with margin. Regardless, the turnover margin would be less, but we dismiss this turnover margin calculation for CEEGEX and trading platform, and only the planned exposure shall be covered with collateral. I would like to highlight the fact that the pre-trade and prepaid trading limits remain in place both on the CEEGEX market and trading platform. The change is that the member can decide the planned exposure, the level of the planned exposure, and the member has to cover this with collateral, but it's a voluntary limit in a way, because KELER CCP doesn't set a minimum limit based on the algorithmic turnover margin calculation. The second change, which was mentioned, is about the amendment of the balancing market's turnover margin calculation. The first point of this amendment, that in this current framework, the balancing market turnover margin is recalculated on a monthly basis. We plan to recalculate daily the turnover margin requirement for the balancing market. It is because it will be a better way to reflect the risks and also to dynamically respond to market developments. So instead of the monthly recalculation of the trading turnover margins, it will be executed daily. The turnover margin requirement will be executed daily, and it has to be met within the due time set by KELER CCP. There will be a change related to the minimum amount of the balancing clearing turnover margin. Due to the recent market developments, the minimum turnover margin for the balancing market will be changed. Currently, its value is 30,000 euros, and from the 1st of August 2022, it will be increased to 50,000 euros. This change, this increase, is only related to the balancing gas market. On the CEEGEX and on the trading platform, there is no minimum turnover margin because the members can voluntarily define the amount of turnover margin necessary for their trading limits. So this minimum increase is only related to the balancing clearing. The second change related to the balancing market turnover margin is the margin parameters recalculation. Currently, when we calculate the balancing market's turnover margin, we check the 365 days purchase price payment. We sum it up and multiply with a given percentage parameter. This percentage parameter is currently 3%. This percentage element is reviewed at least annually. But with the new model, this percentage will be subject to daily recalculation. We recalculate it based on backtesting methodology. We consider 250 financial settlement days and 99% confidence level. With these backtest parameters, our aim is to cover the exposures more effectively. And also, there is a new element to the margin parameter, a so-called buffer against procyclicality, or APC, anti-procyclicality buffer. KELER CCP, as an EMIR-compliant CCP, has to apply anti-procyclicality measures. KELER CCP chose a 25% buffer from the possibilities listed in EMIR requirement, and this 25% buffer shall be applied on the parameter if there is no stress on the market. If there is stress on the market, then this buffer is not applied. KELER CCP calculates daily a so-called stress signal based on the price changes. We calculate volatility standard deviation with equal weights and with EVMA. And if the EVMA is bigger than the normal standard deviation, then there is stress on the market. The market signal is signaling that there is stress, and in that case we will unbuffer the parameter. But if there is no stress according to the stress signal, we will buffer the parameter up. Element is implemented in the balancing market margin calculation formula based on the CEEGEX and trading platform net sell positions. KELER CCP identified that one possible source of imbalances is trading on organized gas markets. Hence, KELER CCP may include a specific percentage of CEEGEX and trading platform average or maximum net sell positions in balancing market turnover margin. This percentage is calculated annually based on the difference between the commercial and balancing gas prices. From effectiveness, its value will be set to 0% indefinitely, meaning that the CEEGEX and trading platform net sell positions do not affect the calculated balancing market margin. During the margin calculation, KELER CCP will calculate a mutual stress indicator for the balancing and trading platform CEEGEX markets. This stress indicator will determine whether the procyclicality buffer is applied or not on the markets. The procyclicality buffer is 25%, which will be applied both on the balancing market parameter and it will be applied on the CEEGEX trading market platform parameter as well if the above mentioned 0% is not applied. If the parameter for the CEEGEX and trading platform is different from 0%, then the procyclicality buffer shall be applied based on the stress signal calculated from the stress indicator. On the next slide, you may see that the final balancing market turnover margin comprises of the sum of the following elements. The first element is the already existing one, the balancing market percentage parameter is multiplied with the sum of financial obligations on balancing market for the previous 365 calendar days. As I mentioned, that there is a necessary regulatory requirement to buffer the percentage parameter based on the stress signal, and that is a change. And the other change is that this balancing market percentage parameter will be recalculated daily. In this current model, we didn't recalculate daily the percentage, which is 3% now, but we have to recalculate daily this percentage parameter based on backtesting. So this is the first element of the balancing market turnover margin. The second element is the CEEGEX and trading platform parameter, buffered or unbuffered, multiplied with the sum of the CEEGEX component and the trading platform component. Regarding the CEEGEX component, we have to consider the net sell positions. Namely, we take the maximum of the highest CEEGEX net sell position for 63 settlement days and the average CEEGEX net sell position for 250 settlement days. We do the same for the trading platform as well. We check the maximum of the highest trading platform net sell position for 63 settlement days and the average trading platform net sell position for 250 settlement days. The sum of these components shall give the CEEGEX trading platform part of the turnover margin calculation for the balancing market. So all in all, we will recalculate the turnover margin parameter for the balancing market daily. We will recalculate the turnover margin itself daily. And we also include the CEEGEX and trading platform net sell positions partially to the turnover margin calculation in the balancing market. We also put the formula to the slides, where you may see that the TM is signed as a turnover margin. We check that there is a stress indicator bigger than 0 or 1, and if it's 0, there is no stress on the market. We applied the procyclicality buffer on the percentage parameter for the balancing market, but if there is a stress, we don't apply. We unbuffer the percentage parameter, and in that case, that doesn't change that we cumulate the payment obligations of the balancing market purchase prices, and this shall be multiplied with the buffered or unbuffered margin parameter that is recalculated daily. And the other part of this formula is also to check there is a stress. If there is a stress, we unbuffer the parameter, but if there is no stress, we buffer it up, and we check the maximum and the average exposures, net sell position exposures for the CEEGEX market and from the trading platform as well.